Congratulations on the brand new album. I've had a chance to sit down and take a listen to it. It sounds absolutely fantastic, so congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So I guess the big question is, and I know a lot of your fans are probably asking this question, but after a 7-year break, what was it that made you guys want to get back together and put down another album?
Well, we actually, we never really broke up. We kind of went into a hiatus because we'd finished our third album, Flesh is Air, in 2013, and we'd done a lot of touring and all that sort of stuff. And by the end of that process, it was quite a long recording and quite stressful, and then we jumped straight into touring. We were really burnt out, and we knew that if we went in to write another album, it'd either destroy the band or we'd end up writing something that was completely uninspired. And kind of looking back on the 3 albums we'd done, we decided they were kind of a really strong trilogy of albums. That was kind of a chapter of the band, and it wouldn't make much sense to just kind of add something to it that was a subpar thing just to go back out on tour. So we decided to just go into hiatus to wait for the inspiration to strike again. And in reality, we actually started writing really, really soon in that break, but we're actually writing for another project, and it eventually became the AMENTA over the course of those few years.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. How often did you guys actually get together in that 7 years? Because I know a few members of the band are busy with other projects as well. So how often were you able to get together and work on stuff?
For a long time in there, Eric, who's the guitar player, and I would get together at least once a week. He was living in Sydney, and I'm in Sydney still. So we'd get together once a week, and we were kind of writing on for this new project. And we've always traditionally written the music with Kane, our vocalist's assistant. So it was kind of business as normal for us. We just kept going. Everyone else, they've always lived a long way, so it's usually we bring them a song and go, all right, let's work on this now. So we were kind of working on it quite a lot. During that process, then Eric moved to London, and we actually, after writing it all while he was here, we recorded it all in separate states and countries, so it was all over the place.
Yeah, I was going to ask that because I noticed you guys did some recording in Australia, but also in London as well. Tell us a little bit about what it was like to record an album, not only in different studios, but in different countries.
It's something that we've done a fair bit. We've because we're so spread out. So I'm in Sydney. Eric was in London. He's now in Adelaide. Dave, our drummer, who also is in Subculture and all that sort of stuff, he's in Melbourne, and then Kane is in Perth, and our bass player Dan lives in LA. So it's all something that we're really used to. When it came to doing this album, it was just we recorded all in our home studios, so it was all kind of what we've always done. We have files that we share over the internet, and there's a lot of communication going on parts, so we'll send work in progress, all that sort of stuff. But it wasn't actually sort of flying into different studios and sorting it out like that. It was more just us kind of doing our process in our rooms and sending it over the internet to sort of compare notes and things.
Yep. Having home studios, that must have been a big help last year with everything in lockdown. Did the lockdown affect you guys at all in that sense?
Not for the recording of the album. We actually finished the album, I think, just a couple of months before this whole thing went. Actually, I think we were finished before the end of 2019, but we were mixing it in the middle of the first sort of outbreak. And that's why Eric actually came back to Australia. He flew back from London just as the borders were closing in the UK. And he'd half mixed the album and then ended up mixing the other half in Adelaide. So that was kind of stressful for us because we had this sort of mix that was starting to sound really good. And moving it into another studio, all of a sudden there's sort of big changes in acoustics and things like that. So that was a difficult process, but the actual recording of it wasn't a problem with COVID. It was the stuff afterwards, so taking all the band photos and filming film clips was really, really difficult when we couldn't really get to each other. We couldn't travel interstate because obviously borders can shut at any time, and for quite a lot of that time they were shut. But we managed to kind of work out ways to get it done, so we filmed things in our home states and got it edited all together, and it was difficult, but we managed it.
Yeah, I guess this changes a lot as well because it's been written over that 7-year period, but what kind of things were inspiring you guys lyrically and musically when you sat down to work on this?
There's so many things that were inspiring, and as you say, it's like 7 years, so it changes all the time. We're all listening to new music constantly, so it's always new things coming in and new things like new ideas, but one of the common things that we spoke about a lot during the making of this was how old English 90s metal used to make us feel.
Yep.
So particularly things like the first few My Dying Bride records and the first Paradise Lost and Anathema ones. There was a sound and a vibe to those albums that we talked about a lot. And so I don't know whether that directly inspired anything, but it was definitely something we discussed a lot. And there was also things like Triptychon's last album was something we spent a lot of time pulling apart and checking out. It was kind of, he made this really sort of dark and nasty music, but it was quite mid-paced, which was obviously different for us. Used to be quite fast, so that was something that I think probably seeped through. But then there's so many other things, there's movies and books and all sorts of things, so it's just sort of a constant aggregation of different sources of inspiration. Yeah,
you mentioned a few bands there. Were they the kind of bands that you grew up listening to during those years that really influence a musician as well?
Definitely, and I think that's the thing we've always tried to do is make the music that makes us feel like we felt like as kids listening to that sort of stuff, because they were the bands we grew up listening to, and not so much Triptychon they were newer, but Celtic Frost, bands like Ackercocker and things like that. There was I'm sure people now discovering metal for the first time are getting a very similar experience for other bands, but for us it was kind of a thing of there was a magic for those bands for us, and we wanted to do our version of that. So we didn't want to copy them because that wouldn't have had the magic. That would have just been a copycat thing. We wanted to do our own version that to us felt like it was part of an ongoing progression from those kind of bands. So I think that's definitely played a part.
Yeah. You talked as well about movies and books in there. One of the things that I absolutely love is the video clip that you guys put together for Sim Money. That clip is absolutely amazing and so different to what other bands are doing at the moment. Where did that idea come from for that video clip, and who helped you guys put it together?
That was so a lot of those ideas came from Kane, our vocalist. He was given the task of organising a video, and this was during the lockdown, so we couldn't get together. So it was kind of an idea of Kane, take this and run with it. He took the lyrics, which I wrote, and we never discussed meaning. So one of the things about the lyrics is it's about interpretation. So Kane took those lyrics and put his interpretation on it. And from my understanding of his process, he basically sat down with the song on headphones and just allowed the sort of music and lyrics to suggest imagery to him. And that kind of formed a few ideas, which he talked to us about, but we didn't really have much input in that, other than to say, yeah, that sounds really good, or maybe you could try this or something like that. But essentially it all came from him. And then he worked with a guy called Garth Hurley, whose website is crtfilms.com.au, very important. He was an old high school friend of Kane's, and they'd done a lot of work in high school on stuff, hadn't spoken in 20 years, and when they ended up speaking again, coincidentally, just as Kane was thinking about this film clip, and Garth had moved into film and worked on all that sort of stuff. So between the two of them, they shot this incredible film clip. Eric and I hadn't actually seen the clip until probably about a week before it was released. So we were getting all this kind of updates and feedback, and we did this. We went and filmed, with dancers in the forest, and it sounded, this is crazy, and we had no idea how it would turn out, but the film clip they pulled out of it is just incredible. So I'm glad you dig it.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm loving the artwork too on the album as well. It's something that is so often forgotten about these days in the digital age, but the artwork is spectacular. How much of a say did you guys have with that artwork as well?
Well, it was quite an interesting one, actually. We worked with an artist called, or the studio's called Metastasis, who's a French guy who's done a lot of great artwork for bands like Behemoth, Mayhem, Ulva, all these sort of bands. He's sort of famously very, very prickly and hard to work with. He sort of tends to tell bands that I'm going to tell you what I think you should do, and you don't really get a chance to say yes or no. And so the last time we tried to work with him was around Flesh's Air, and he just told us to bugger off, because we don't really cede control lightly. But something must have happened in the interim, because this time it was a much easier way of working. And so we gave him a whole bunch of lyrics and some songs and things, and allowed him to interpret it, because once again the album is about interpretation. And he came back with a couple of ideas, and one of them was that heart icon.
Yep.
And we immediately went, yep, that's the one. It plays into certain themes in the lyrics, and it looks cool, and we think it'll show up well on a streaming service, but it'll also look great on vinyl. And so this time we were able to back and forth a lot with him, and we worked on some things and added some things and took things away. And so it was actually a really, really great collaboration, but the seeds of the idea came from him.
Yeah. Now, we are running out of time very, very quickly, so I'll just ask before I go, where to now for you guys? Everything seems to be opening back up very, very slowly, so what next for the AMENTA now?
Well, hopefully we'll be doing some Australian shows. That is the plan. So once things become a little bit more open and we're confident that they're not going to get shut down again, we'll start looking at where we can book things. We'd love to play again in Australia. And then we've started working on some more music, which is not a new album, but it's something that's kind of related to Revelator, which hopefully will come out reasonably soon. And then after that, it's on to the next album, and we're going to see if we can get it done within 8 years this time.
Awesome. Well, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you again. Congratulations on such a fantastic album, and we cannot wait to see you guys live.
Thanks very much, Dave. Great to speak to you.
Not a problem, mate. You have a great day. Stay safe.
You too. Bye.
Bye.